Welcome back to Sports Time HQ. I'm your host, Fernando. Joined with me today is, of course, my great co-host, Keith and Gary. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, Fernando. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, doing good. Ready to talk some football.
Before we get into it, all three of our teams, well, they all suck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary, you want to talk about your team first?
Is that me? I never want to talk about my team. I expected us to lose this week. I didn't really expect us to get absolutely demolished, however. Just a lot of changes need to be happening, but I don't think they will. So, yeah, to a point where I'm just rooting for the other team now.
Fair enough. Keith, your team.
We lost.
What happened? What happened with the Giants, huh? Giants ended up beating you guys?
I hate the Giants, man. I enjoy it. And yeah, we couldn't stop the run game. We couldn't stop, Daniel Jones pass. We couldn't do anything. Too banged up especially in the secondary. It's gonna be a problem. I think a lot of people thought the Seahawks were just not going to be good this year, just because we didn't have the players. But we're not going to be good because we don't have any fit players. So yeah, it's going to be a struggle this week, and Gino's got to play a lot better. I mean, I think we were still very much in that game, but we didn't do a lot on offense either. So a bad week, that's definitely a bad loss. I mean, the Detroit loss wasn't that bad, since they're a team going for the Super Bowl, but a team that's looking for an early pick next year beats you. It's never a great sign.
Yeah. Seahawks, hopefully, maybe we'll see them on Thursday Night Football, maybe beats the 49ers. We'll have the predictions later on in the show. Patriots, well, Patriots are the Patriots. I actually picked the Patriots to beat the Dolphins. I thought if there was a game that the Patriots could win, it would be against the Dolphins.
I picked the Patriots as well. That didn't work out.
What's going on with our teams? Sorry, Gary, but power rankings for me come out tomorrow, and the Browns are last.
That's totally fine. I mean, our offense honestly has a shot at being the worst ever. I mean, it's repulsive watching them try to move the ball. I mean, we just need to get rid of the entire offense, get 2 first-rounders, have 3 first-rounders, and go into the draft and just doctor it up and keep Chubb off the field, keep him healthy. Next year, they'll come back and see what we can do from there.
Is Myles Garrett hurt? He had no effect on the game. If you check his stats, he barely had any decent pressures. That's odd.
Yeah, he's been dealing with a foot injury, I believe, and something else in his leg. So I don't really know what his status is. I think he only played 50% of the game.
Okay.
But I think he's been dealing with this injury since week 1, and he's going to require surgery at some time. So I don't know if he's going to finish out the season or just, at some point we say, you know what, enough's enough, just get the surgery and we'll see you next year. I don't really know. But, yeah, his team's just done.
And, I mean, this will go into our news and notes around the league. Mari Cooper might be on the trade block and leaving soon. Are you expecting him to be traded officially soon?
Probably. I mean, I think he still leads the league in drops. And it's just annoying because, we were looking to trade him for Ayuk, obviously, and now we are probably going to trade him at his lowest point, which is just typical Cleveland, I guess. Just the worst luck to ever happen. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm totally fine with him getting moved because we got him for nothing. So I would assume we get back what we traded him for.
Fair enough. Devontae Adams saga. Now, this will kind of tie into the other news that just broke out maybe about an hour ago. Robert Saleh getting fired. He's no longer the head coach for the New York Jets after a 2 and 3 star and a loss in London this past week. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich will take over as the interim head coach. Now, is this an opportunity where Devontae Adams will get traded there? Or will he go somewhere else? Maybe the Saints? Maybe go play with Derek Carr again.
I don't know. I think this is odd if Adams is going to end up there, because I think you would have let Salah have a chance with Rodgers and Adams. You know, I mean, there are 2 and 3. There's plenty of worse teams in the league. They're still right in it. You know, it's early days. Going to be right in there with a shot for the division. So I think it's odd if Adam ends up there now. I was reading last night the favorites, you know, as of last night to get Adams or the Ravens, and I think that's odd. I don't see that being a good fit at all. But yeah, I think this whole situation with Salah getting fired is probably more of a he didn't get on with Rodgers type of thing. I mean, like, if you want to look, you could also look at it like that Rodgers got him fired after a terrible display on Sunday. But I think Salah probably has been done harsh here by the Jets. It's a typical kind of Jets move that we've seen in previous years, and I don't think it's right. I don't think it's one that's a positive going forward for the Jets. But I don't think Davante Adams, going back to the original question, ends up here now. I think he'll end up somewhere else.
I completely agree. I was definitely surprised when I saw that tweet. I saw it being fired, and yeah, I 100% agree that if they were in on Davante Adams, I mean, I feel like they would have let Salah get a shot at it. I mean, you can't. I feel like if you fail with Davante Adams and Rodgers, albeit, you know, years from both of their primes, but still, then we'll move on. But yeah, I don't know. I would say they're out now.
This is after a 20-36 start to Robert Saleh's head coaching career in New York. I mean, if you think about it, just the head coaching career in New York has just not looked good. The landscape of it. Adam Gase was there, had a 9-23 record back from 2019 to 2020. Todd Bowles, 24-40. So Jets just have not been good the last 10 years. Maybe Aaron Rodgers needs to leave or retire. It's also an option.
See what happens. They need to get the best out of him. I mean, Salah got a raw deal last year with having to have Wilson. I mean, there's not much they could have done there unless they were going to go trade for another decent quarterback. But yeah, I think he's just failed. I think he's just been badly treated here. He'll end up back in the league, I'm sure. Maybe not a head coach job unless something else pops up. Maybe the 49ers will take him back next season.
They need some offense. That's what they need.
Yeah, but I think this is just a bad move overall for the Jets.
Agreed.
Yeah, completely agree as well. Moving on to some other news. Second week of London games. Jets Vikings. That was a pretty good game. Vikings, of course, now 5-0. Jaguars versus the Bears this upcoming week in London. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, I will be at the game.
Nice.
I officially bought tickets. I'm going to the game.
Nice.
Sounds good. You wearing your Patriots gear or your Jags gear?
You're so funny. I actually have no Jaguars gear.
Okay.
It's only Patriots gear. I will be repping Patriots because I feel like London, you know, I'm a person that wants to go and show up in like the actual uniform of the game of the teams. But I think London, there's an exception because there's so many different jerseys wherever you go, in the stadium.
You'll have a lot of Jags this week because they're like, you know, home team almost now.
Yeah.
But like when I went, I wore Seahawks, like Katie wore, like I wish we were getting into Bengals and stuff like that. She had flags and stuff. You can wear whatever you want. No one's going to give you a hard time. It's a way more relaxed, fun atmosphere as well than being at an actual game in the US. So you'll have.
I'm just hoping it's a fun game. I'm hoping it's just going to be a fun game.
Well, like Trevor turned. Well, I don't know if he really turned up, but the Jags turned up in some sort of form last week.
Tank turned up.
Tank turned up exactly, and they'll usually turn up in at least put on a performance in London. So hopefully it's a good game. Which stadium is it in? Is it in Spurs or Wembley?
It's in Tottenham.
Oh, it's Spurs. Okay, Spurs. I've never been to that stadium, so yeah, should be good.
Really, you went to the other one. That's where I was going to go with the Patriots because they were going to be there next week.
Yeah. So I mean, you'll have a good time.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. But I mean, last week was a pretty good game. I'm going to be honest. I would have probably liked to enjoy seeing Sam Darnold.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was a defensive game, really. I mean, like the Jets defense kept them in it, and Darnold, it was his worst game.
Got to see Justin Jefferson. Would have been able to see Jay Jettas, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But I didn't think the game overall. I mean, like they had a chance to win it at the end of Jets, and again, Rodgers blew it. So, I thought it was okay. I just didn't think it was the best game.
Okay. Fair enough. Of course, after that, Patriots and Jaguars to finish out the London games. Also want to mention that possibly we might have an Ireland game in the coming year.
Really?
Yeah. Ireland, Madrid, and France are to be known some of the top ones to be put into international games next year.
Yeah, if that's happening, I'll try to go back home to go see that game. Definitely. There's college games booked in for Ireland for the next 2 years, so like they definitely know how to do it. So the NFL just need to expand there.
Yeah. Bye weeks again. This week it is the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. Chiefs, big one if you have Xavier Worthy, Kareem Hunt, Patrick Mahomes. Rams, maybe Tutu Atwell, maybe Parkinson.
Kyron.
What is that?
Kyron.
Yeah, Kyron, of course. Dolphins, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, who have been questionable on performances. And then Vikings, of course, Jay Jettas, Jordan Addison, Sam Darnold, stuff like that. Big games, big teams being on a bye for fantasy managers.
Yeah, I suppose the good thing, it comes early for some of them big players. So like if you are going to take an L like early, and then hopefully they stay fit for the rest of especially the fancy games or fancy weeks. So I'm not too disappointed if I've got some of them big names, just get it out of the way.
Yeah, that's how I kind of felt this past week with Gibbs and Amon-Ra and Laporta, and then you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith who have been out, but and Saquon, they just had their buys too. So I got a few of those guys, so I'm kind of glad that they're done and over with now and ready to move forward and get ready for playoffs.
Honestly, this week was brutal because I had a bunch of lines. I had Montgomery, I had Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was brutal this week. I actually had in one of my leagues. Luckily, it was one of my work leagues. I actually had a flex spot player that was on a bye week start because I had no other option. I couldn't drop anyone, and I had I think Cooper Kupp, who was out as well, of course. So I was just brutal. It was brutal. But hey, it worked. I ended up still winning, so that's all that matters, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, that's all that matters. I had a league in which I was without Mixon, Gibbs, Goddard, and somebody else, and I still managed to put up 172. So wow. Tyrone Tracy came through. Justice Hill didn't do me very good, but I had Burrow and Chase who just went berserk. So definitely was happy with that performance.
Probably got nearly you could have 80, 90 points from just 2 of them.
Easily.
And then combined. Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if you've seen this, but Salah was told this morning and then escorted out of the building by security.
Really?
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Though he didn't get time to have a meeting to inform the players or anything, if you believe the reports.
And what's even crazier is 4 days ago, Aaron Rodgers said that they were good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, then there was that thing on the sideline with them. I don't know if that was a joke or not.
Yeah.
Great, but it definitely comes across like especially if you've seen Hard Knocks and stuff. I don't think they really get off.
I don't know. It's going to be intriguing what happens if more news comes out, and hopefully Salah finds a job, because I actually thought he was a good coach personally. Maybe just not for the Jets. But
not for debate, but I definitely like some of the things that he stands for, and he definitely had some good moments like that 22 Jets team, like they really didn't have any expectations. They go out and they win 4 games in a row, whatever it was, or something. So that's definitely they definitely had some bright spots, and I think he could be definitely a solid guy somewhere else. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. Lastly, on notes, 5-0 teams, undefeated teams. Kansas City and Minnesota are the last 2 teams to stay undefeated. Obviously, They're on their bye weeks this week. When they come back after their bye weeks, they have tough matchups. Vikings are going to take on a division rival Lions, and Kansas City takes on the San Francisco 49ers, who have been kind of up and down all season. You kind of see one team being undefeated the most between the two.
Like it's probably going to end up being the Chiefs, but I would say out of the two of them, the Chiefs don't look like the Vikings look better. Yeah. The Chiefs are like, it looks like it's a struggle, that way. Like they're getting the points, they're getting up and down the field. But Mahomes is like, it's all short and sharp stuff. Like even Worthy last night, the stuff over the top didn't work. It was all short stuff. They got Kelsey more involved, which helped. And I thought the Saints were terrible on defense last night. Derek Carr was back to being Derek Carr of old. He did not look good. Things just don't look right for the Chiefs. I know they're missing a lot of players because of injury, but I wouldn't bet against them though to remain undefeated the longest.
Yeah, right. If between those two teams, I would probably pick the Chiefs as well. I actually think that last night, and this is not saying much, but the past couple of weeks, that was probably the best they looked, at least offensively, moving the ball. You mentioned, Keith, the Saints defense looked abysmal. I agree. They did not look good at all. So that definitely played a role in it. But, I think that they got Kelsey involved more. That was obvious, and that definitely helped. They need to keep doing that. Juju had a game of his life. So maybe a resurgence there. I don't know. But definitely getting all their guys involved, using the speed of Xavier Worthy. So I think that, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're going to continue to be a dominant force. I would probably pick them to stay, 5-0 or 6-0, whatever it is, undefeated longer than the Vikings. But I don't know. Either team could very much lose next week.
Yeah.
And I mean, this will go into our injuries, because I also do see the Chiefs lasting the longest, but I do think the Vikings still, again, have a better team. Injuries-wise, we do have news on Rashee Rice. He is expected to be out for the remainder of the season, which we kind of already expected, but it is to repair his LCL. So that is a big loss. Davante Adams maybe goes there. Who knows? Amari Cooper. That could be another big name to go to Kansas City. Some other injuries. Derek Carr facing an oblique injury. This is similar to Richardson's comparison. He could miss a game, maybe two, depending on how severe. And then, of course, Nico Collins. I think this is the biggest one, is the hamstring injury. He's week to week. I mean, he was getting targets after targets after targets. Now, without Nico Collins, I think Tank Dell's the guy that's going to have to step up over Stephon Diggs.
I'd like to believe it, but he didn't do much when Collins went out. I think he was like 4 for 38 or something. I mean, I'm a Dell believer, but a lot of people, probably us included, were knocking Diggs, but like he's actually putting up decent numbers so far. So, I mean, it's all about usage, right? And he looks like they're using him a lot more and a lot better than Tank Dell. But yeah, if there's an opportunity here, it's crying out for Dell to get a season going.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that situation because I feel like a lot of people, understandably so, thought that Diggs was going to take a hit fantasy-wise. I mean, he's going into this absolutely loaded offense, so it's not necessarily that he's becoming a worse player than he once was. It's just the fact that there's too many mouths to feed, which I completely agree with. But at the same time, you have to swallow your pride, whether you want to talk bad about Stephon Diggs or not. He's one of the better receivers in the game. He's going to get his no matter what. Especially now with Nico being out, I think that he's going to, have those 100-yard games with 10 catches and a touchdown, So I think that if you have Diggs, you've relied on him to be this flex guy the entire season so far. I think he's going to be a guy that is going to bring you to the playoffs with ease now. Depends how long Nico's out. But, I think that Diggs could definitely be a league winner. We're looking back at this a couple weeks later saying, wow, he was such a slept-on pick.
Yeah. I could see it as well. I mean, Dell definitely needs to step it up But obviously, like you mentioned, Gary, I mean, Diggs is there. Diggs has been a great talent, and he still is a great talent. It's just all about the matter of production on what CJ Stroud can do without Nico Collins, who is one of the most targeted players in the NFL before getting that injury. All right. You guys got any more news and notes or injuries?
No, I'm good.
All right. Let's get into the quarterback waiver wire. And guys, can we just state that it was brutal out there. This week was brutal. Not just quarterbacks, but just anywhere. Brutal.
I can't believe who I picked for my quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about your guy. But I will go with my guy first, and that's Flacco Nation over here. Joe Flacco. He's been putting up numbers. He was a QB4 this past week. He's got 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the last 2 games. Now, obviously, Richardson is missing time with his oblique injury, but they do say he is still the starter when he comes back, which I'm not surprised. Obviously, that is what should happen. But if Richardson has to miss another game, Flacco, I'm perfectly fine, especially if you need a quarterback, if you have Sam Darnold, if you have Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes even on your bye weeks, and you need a serviceable quarterback, Joe Flacco is the guy. He's only 13% owned. He's going against Tennessee, we know how Tennessee has been this season. But I don't expect the team to rush Richardson back if they have a decently good quarterback who can throw the ball and win games. Maybe not against Jags, but just be able to get out there and play.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I like it once Richardson's out. And the one thing I do disagree with you, though, is that I would keep Richardson on the bench, even if he's healthy. Flacco right now gives this team a better chance to win. He's getting all the receivers involved. For fantasy-wise, he's definitely the better option. Unless you have Richardson, you want the runner. But if you've got any of the, Pittman, Pierce, Downs, they're all getting involved now. And we've seen it last year with, Watson went down, Flacco went in there, and all of a sudden, he brought that offense to life. I think I would leave him in, but it's not going to happen. But he's definitely a great pickup this week once Richardson's out.
Yeah, he's a former Brown, so I can't hate on this pick whatsoever. No, I agree with you. He's playing lights out, just picking back up from what he did last year. I don't understand how we personally could have let that go, but we did, and he looks great. So I wish the Browns had a guy like him.
I was saying how the Browns should have kept Joe Flacco.
I completely
really dumb.
agree with you. It made no sense to me how we let him walk and then we just get Jameis Winston for I think it was more money than Joe Flacco signed for.
Yeah.
So didn't make any sense to me. I personally, you guys already know what I think. I stated in the group chat and at the beginning of this pod that the team's done. So why not have fun with it? Put in Jameis. Let him go for 5 touchdowns and 5 picks. I don't really care at this point.
Yeah, it might actually just be fun to watch more than
hoping
to win.
Exactly right. And it would make wins more enjoyable to watch. Yeah. I love the Joe Flacco look.
Yeah, and Keith, I see your point on just keeping Joe Flacco even if Richardson comes back healthy. Yeah. I just think I don't see a world where the Colts could do that based on the draft capital and everything along those lines.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just mean if you want to win games, I think Flacco's your better option.
Oh yeah. I think personally, now that you know what you have in Joe Flacco on your team now, obviously you saw him with the Browns, he did great, but now that you know he can still do good on Indianapolis, if Richardson comes back and struggles, I think you got to move on. I think you got to go to Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say it right. You've been banged up 2 years. Your time will come. You sit there, and we'll let Flacco roll this out and see where we want to go. The problem with that is as well, the Colts, are not going to win a Super Bowl, and they're probably looking at that from Richardson. We'll learn more about him now for when we are ready to win. So you've got that angle too, but. If you're wanting to win games, Flacco's your guy.
Yeah, for sure. Keith, I think you want to talk about my cousin next.
Your cousin, Mr. Kirk Cousin himself. I could not, when I seen he was only 41% rostered, I was I can't resist. He threw for over 500 yards. It was a great game on Thursday Night Football, probably the game of the year so far. And he has the Panthers coming up. I mean, if he wants to, he could probably throw 500 yards, but he probably won't need to. And he scored 35 fantasy points last week. The Panthers, I think the Andy Dalton, thing has worn off. They're fine, but they're not going to be anywhere, better than with Dalton. They might win 1 or 2 more games. I just think he's a good option this week. He don't expect him to hit the 35 points, but he could definitely get around 20 points.
Yeah, this is mine and Fernando's guy. We love him. I can't knock this at all. I love Kirk Cousins. I dropped him as my backup quarterback like almost every year. So always a solid option, whether he's on the waiver wire or your backup QB to stream for a week. And if you watch the game that he just played last week, you can't knock that performance at all. So
yeah, I have a question for you, Gary. Right? Yeah. Debacle in one of my leads. Do I play Kirk Cousins against the Panthers or Jalen Hurts at home to your boys?
What's funny is like, obviously normally anybody would go with Hurts, but the reason why I actually might say Cousins is because we might be down 50-0 at half, so he might just only play one half of football.
True.
No, I don't know. I mean, I would go with Hurts, but it's definitely a genuine question, honestly, because you just watch Kirk Cousins put up 50 points or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And,
I think I'd also agree with that.
Yeah, you don't really know. I feel like I don't really know what the Eagles are going to do. They could just destroy our running game, who let up 175 yards to the Raiders. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And I've got Drake London, so I could just stack.
Yeah, that stack is always nice.
Yeah.
Definitely a good stack there. I'll talk about the cousin that I do like a lot, but I did have to pump the brakes a little bit on Cousins when I was looking at my waivers. I thought about putting him, but the issue is I think he's hanging around with Katy Perry too much. Hot and cold. That's the issue that I'm having here. Okay. He has, of course, he just had this QB1 good showcase against Tampa Bay, who gives up a lot of points to quarterbacks. And again, Carolina is going to do the same thing. They're going to give a lot of points to Kirk Cousins. If that happens again, maybe I can say that I'm down to go with Kirk Cousins. Don't knock it. I think he's a stream this week. Don't get me wrong. But Kansas City, QB 23, New Orleans, QB 26, and then Pittsburgh, QB 28. He finished outside the top 24 quarterbacks. So he's not even a serviceable QB2 at that point. I want to see how the connection again continues with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. I give it one more week, but he definitely will be on the lookout on my waivers if I do end up needing a quarterback.
Fair enough.
Gary, who is your favorite quarterback this week and maybe ever?
Yeah, it's not a guy that I haven't been a fan. It's a guy that I haven't been a fan of. It's Bo Nix, rookie Bo Nix. I just don't think that you can see what he did last game and hate on it. I mean, he had 27 fantasy points, and the rushing upside, I looked at his past couple of games, is there. He's very mobile. So I think that if you have him in a favorable matchup situation, he's not a bad play at all. He's a guy that has put up 20-plus fantasy points in 2 of the past 3 weeks. So if you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, here's a guy that could get you 20 to 25 points in a favorable matchup. I don't really hate it at all. And he seems to find a connection with Cortland Sutton. So
he very much does. I thought Nix was one of the rising stars for the preseason, in my opinion. I thought he flashed a lot in the preseason. I love his rushing ability. He actually has the same amount of rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns this season, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but the rushing upside still helps a lot. And I like Nix, and I think if he continues to have that connection, like you said, Gary, with Sutton, I like Nix, and I think if you really need a quarterback and you're desperate, I think this is a guy you can go get for sure.
Yeah, super flex leagues, your second, you got to play him as your super flex QB. I don't mind it at all. The rushing upside, like you said, I think he definitely gives this team the best chance of winning. He fights like hell. We've seen him arguing with Sean Payton on the sideline and everything. So he's as the games go by, he's getting better and better with this offense. Like you said, Gary, he's getting that connection with Sutton, which is the guy you want in that offense. So I like the pick. I don't mind it at all. If I have him on the bench in either 2 QB or super flex, I don't mind putting him in.
Fair enough. Joe Flacco, and of course Bo Nix, and my cousin Kirk Cousins, our top waiver wire quarterback ads of the week. Let's go into the running backs. And Keith, I'll start with you. Who's this guy that is on a team that should be tanking because their quarterback sucks?
Yeah, I mean, it's Tank Bigsby. Don't get me wrong now, before I start off with this, he had 2 big runs that basically, got all his fantasy points this week, is 25 fantasy points. But I just think we've got this far, and that he needs to be owned and not on the waiver wires. Travis Etienne hasn't looked that good so far. I know he's still going to be in there, probably the number 1 guy. But Bigsby needs to be owned, especially with all these bye weeks coming up. You're not going to have that many options unless you're paying like an 8-team league or something. There's not going to be much out there in the waiver wires. So where he is, you got to go grab him. Running backs, they're scarce. They get injured easily. I know Etienne is still kind of banged up too, so maybe Bigsby might get a bigger role this week. So I just think he's a good plug and play this week, and see how it goes. He needs for me, it's a bit like you, Fernando, with Cousins, the whole hot and cold thing. He needs to prove it again, not from just like 2 big runs. He needs to be more consistent, but I think he's a guy you can plug and play this week.
I don't hate this at all. I actually am a fan of the home run playability. I love those guys that have huge upside, especially when, this is a waiver wire we're talking about. These guys aren't guys that you'd expect to start every week. So I feel like that's exactly what you're looking for in the waiver wire. A guy that is your desperate last option to plug and play. And I think Tank Bigsby definitely fills that void. He's not going to be a guy that you expect to put up 10 points a week, but, he'll have that 1 week where he goes off for like 25 because he gets half the carries and, he finds the crease and goes for like a 50-yard touchdown like he did last week. So I don't hate this pick at all. Tank Bigsby, solid. I don't think he can stay on the waiver wire if he's there for any of your leagues.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love ETN, I really want ETN to still succeed. But if we see another week like this from Bigsby, I mean, now it's going to be the question on, is he going to start earning more and more touches over ETN, who we know is a really good running back, but just has not looked that great this season. And the question comes up, do you rather start Bigsby over ETN this upcoming weeks? I think overall, you're probably still going to go with ETN, maybe overall, because you're going to go with the guy with the name. But Bigsby's got the home run potential, like you guys were saying.
Yeah, I think it's the dilemma you're going to have, especially if you are the Etienne owner and you get Bigsby off waivers. You're going to have that toss of a coin thing, and there's a good chance you're probably going to get it wrong. But, I mean, you just got to stick with your gut and see. Like, I would probably lean Bigsby just right now, the way it's going. But, I mean, it's definitely a toss of a coin.
Yeah, it's definitely a toss of a coin, especially with the fact that, I mean, there's been rumors swirling around that if the Jags can't string more wins together, then ETN could even be a trade candidate. Yeah. So I think that even more bolsters up the reason to pick up Bigsby on the waiver wire, because if ETN is out of there, then the next back is Dearness Johnson, who, I mean, I'm a big fan
Farmer
of.
Brown.
But, he's not going to get those backup carries like Bigsby does now. So I think that if he's there, you can't just let him go by.
No, I can't knock it either. I think that's a great one. I think if you are an ETN owner, personally, I think I'm staying away from Bigsby in the waivers because, like he said, every week now you're going to have that toss of a coin trying to figure out who you want to start. Don't give me that option.
Yeah, right.
Your best thing might be you're right. Your best thing might be let someone take Bigsby and then see if you can trade them Etienne for something, if that's what you want to get out of the situation completely and see who you get back.
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. Gary, who is your guy? Because I tell you what, I do not like this guy because you're chirping into my running back.
Why not? Oh, come on. This guy's Tyrone Tracy Jr. Listen, I picked him up this week in one of my leagues, plugged him in because I had no other options. I was very happy with the result. Ran for over 100 plus yards, only on 18 carries, so he ran for 7 a pop. Keith, you probably didn't like watching it.
No, I didn't at all.
But he looks good. Definitely looks like the RB1 no matter what in New York, I would have to say.
Yeah, okay.
Didn't get a touchdown this week, but I mean, if Singletary happens to still be out come next week and moving forward, which I'm not sure if that will be the case, I think he's a guy that you must start if you got that flex option there. Dropped 14 points this week. I could see him doing that and more going forward.
Obviously, Singletary, he's dealing with the groin injury, and there was rumors that he might have to miss another week. And if he does, then I'm all in on Tyrone Tracy to pick up to start because I still think the RB1 in New York just really is going to put up points and really going to be a great start and plug and play every single week, like we saw with Tyrone Tracy. Now, when Singletary comes back, now the question is, does Singletary lose snaps? And I think there is, unfortunately, a possibility where Singletary can lose snap shares, which I don't want to say.
Lose it all, and then you lose a bit.
Which I don't want to say, but I hope Singletary comes back and he still continues to produce. But I think Tyrone Tracy, now you can see, like, if you're an ETN owner, I would go get Tyrone Tracy, in my opinion. Because I think if Singletary has to miss time, Tyrone Tracy is a good plug-and-play guy.
Yeah. I mean, I like the pick. This week they got the Bengals. The Bengals can't stop anything right now. And even if Singletary comes back, I think he'll be mixed in. Like, it's more of a case if you're a Singletary owner, probably like yourself, Fernando, that you're more worried now about losing a bulk of the snaps to Tracy because he looked very good. So, yeah, I like the pick. I think he's definitely going to be mixed in regardless whether Singletary is as healthy or not this week. So I think you can definitely plug and play.
One thing I like about Tyrone Tracy as well is that every game so far, he's had 2+ targets, I believe. So it shows that he has that screen receiving upside. I don't know if he caught a pass his past game, but
he did.
He did? Okay. Well, I was
for 1 yard.
For 1 yard. Okay. So that's my point. He had 14 points, went over 100 rushing yards, and he didn't even get that receiving upside where he could get a few more points out of that. So I'm all in on Tyrone Tracy this week.
I'm still all in on Singletary, but if you have a
guy,
if you need a running back,
I can understand how you are because that's been your guy. But if Singletary is to miss this week and
go get Tyrone Tracy
going forward, then you need to get him, especially because I saw Eric Gray get like 3 straight goal line touches. And he couldn't punch it in once, and then he fumbled at the one.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I like that.
From that point on, I was like, you know what? As a Tyrone Tracy owner today, I feel good.
Yeah.
I would feel good about.
You knew where it was going after that,
right? Exactly.
I mean, you could eventually see Tyrone Tracy be kind of the back to lead the way into the red zone, and then Singletary being the red zone guy.
For sure.
So. I'll finish up the running backs with my guy who I actually was surprised that he was under 70% owned. And that's Rico Dowdle. He's a guy that is the RB1 in Dallas. Now, there was a lot of rumors whether or not Zeke was going to be the RB1 this season. I look back to himself that we saw in last week's in New England. Clearly not. Clearly, he is nowhere to be seen. But Rico Dowdle has looked good now leading the backfield of Dallas. It seemed like at first they were splitting carries. Dowdle's got it. He was an RB3 last week. 20 rushes, he had 87 yards, which was his career high. And he also caught 2 receptions for 27 yards and touchdown. Now, the snap percentage share was 50% Dowdle, 30% Zeke. I think it's going to continue to be like that. You might see Dowdle have a little bit higher percentage as the weeks go on, but he's only 63% owned. He is going to get over 70% owned after this week, I believe. But 19.4 points, that's a solid RB1 to start.
Yeah, I like the pick. I was drafting him everywhere in late rounds. He was one of my guys, probably So like it just this week, I would be kind of cautious with them just because they're going against Detroit and they are the number one defense against the run. But like if you need to play him, then fine. But I think he's probably good any other week, maybe not this week.
Yeah, I agree. Coming into this year, I was a big Zeke guy. Definitely missed on that. But I'm happy to see that Rico Dowdle is taking over a lead back role. It shows that Dallas has officially made up their mind now at that position. So whoever has Rico Dowdle, or if you're in a league where he's on that waiver wire, you now know what you are probably going to get out of Rico Dowdle week by week. So I would have no problem in picking him up. I would do it with confidence.
Love it. Love to hear it. Rico Dowdle, Tank Bigsby, Tyrone Tracy Jr., our top running back ads of the week. Let's go to our wide receivers. And Gary, we'll start with you. Who is a guy that you're going to the moon for?
I knew you were going to throw on something like that. Darnell Mooney. I texted you guys on Thursday night saying nobody picked this man because I want to get to him. I'm astonished to see that he's wide receiver 15. I mean, I wasn't really expecting that whatsoever. I know he just had a 31 point performance, but still, it was very, very surprising to me. Yeah, just had 31.5 points this week. There hasn't been a game that he's played where he's played less than 93% of snaps, which is just crazy upside. In those games, he's had 6+ targets, and 3 of them, he's had 3 games with a touchdown. So, I mean, I don't think that you can miss with picking him up here. Like I said, wide receiver 15, if he's there on your waiver wire, he's only 66% owned. So he's out there for some of you. Go get him.
Yeah, I love this pick. I mean, Darnell Mooney has been connecting really, really well with Kirk Cousins. And I think if that continues to happen, I think Darnell Mooney is going to be one of your league savers. And the fact that he's still under 70% owned is just mind-boggling. Gary, if it wasn't for you claiming him on Thursday, I would have claimed him because he would have been my top waiver wire ad of the week for the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I have to get him.
It's a great pick. I mean, this was an odd, how he ended up with the Falcons. It seemed odd to me. I mean, he was pretty good for the Bears. I know the Bears had an overhaul there, but like he still could have fit in no problem. And now he comes over to the Falcons as maybe like probably on paper wide receiver 2, but I think it's kind of like 1A, 1B with London because London so far has been hit and miss. I know he has his great game last week, but it's not been like that, for the last year or so. And if you watched how they used him last week, it was kind of very Debo-esque as well. He was, sweeping around and the short stuff as well as the long stuff. I mean, like all the targets are there. I think he's going to be Kirk Cousins' best friend, really, over London going forward. So I think this is like a great pick and possibly a league winner. I think.
Yeah, I think that it would be hard to say anything against that, especially considering the fact that, last game he had 16 targets, which obviously is an eye-popping amount. But I think everybody who watched that game remember the fact that he had like a 25, 30-yard pass that he dropped where he was open. So he could have even had a few more points. Yeah. So I think that if he's out there, then you're just begging to, lose if you don't pick him up, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy. Mooney is, I think Mooney is probably going to be the most added player of the week, in my opinion.
At the position, I'd say it'll be between him and Tank overall. But,
I can see Tank.
At wide receiver, I wouldn't be surprised if Mooney's top. I agree there.
Personally, I'd rather pick Mooney, in my opinion. I think there's more value there. And if you pick up Mooney, you could always go trade him for a running back that you need.
I mean, Mooney's been good more or less all season so far. Like, you know what I mean? And he's still out there in a lot of leagues, like Gary was saying. It's kind of crazy. Like, it's kind of just the name probably just doesn't hit for a lot of people.
No. Yeah. I mean, when he was on the Bears, he was kind of a hit or miss. So
yeah, he was the best of what they had. They didn't have a whole lot, and he was the best.
Yeah,
but,
at the time, no.
Exactly, he looks great in this offense. So.
I'll go with my guy who, Gary, your guy was a wide receiver 15. My guy's just 5 more wide receivers after yours. That's Allen Lazard. He is the wide receiver 20, and he's only 47% owned. He's gone up slowly and the percentage owned. But I was all in on him in the very beginning of the season. I'm still been in on him. I just can't talk about him every single week because that's just going to get boring. But of course, as I mentioned, Mooney is the top choice. But if you can't get Mooney, Lazard is the next best. I mean, he's a solid wide receiver 2 flex option start every single week. He's gotten 18 targets the last 2 weeks, 10 plus points the last 3 weeks, with 2 of them getting 13 plus points. So I think he's a really good wide receiver. And Lazard and Rodgers, I mean, there's a connection there. We've already known that. And we still continue to see it even on a new team. So as much as Wilson can get 23 targets and be like the second least wide receiver to have 20 plus targets, the yardage is also wild stat. But Lazard is one of Rodgers' guys, and he'll continue to be Rodgers' guy.
Yeah, I think he is going to be the guy. I don't know if you checked out the last few games or went back. Like Wilson's separation is terrible. Like it's hard work getting away from these corners and defensive backs. He's not very natural at doing it. And this is his issue, how he's targeted so much, but doesn't come up with the ball. He just doesn't create enough separation. So Lazard has been, Rodgers' guy then, especially in the end zone. I think he's a guy that has to be owned. He's definitely a great flex play because it looks like even if he's not seeing a bunch of targets, he's going to fall into the end zone and get a touchdown and get points that way. So I like to pick.
Yeah, Lazard, you can't knock it. I mean, you guys have already mentioned the fact that he has that history with Aaron Rodgers, is the reliable guy for him. He had a couple drops last game too, so also could have had more points. But yeah, I think you're going to see him have like 7 targets a game, which is crazy. Because I think that coming into this year, everybody believed that Garrett Wilson was going to be the guy, by far. Wide receiver 2 was going to be up and crushing. But yeah, I think Lazard's taking over that role. Right now, it looks like the wide receiver 1 in New York, so who really knows? But yeah, he's caught a bunch of touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to catch more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we know.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we know Rodgers doesn't like throwing to younger receivers.
That too.
Yeah, true. My question for you is, so I know we said we don't think Adams goes here now, but say he does it fall into line as Adams wide receiver 1, Lazard was wide receiver 2, and Wilson all of a sudden is right down the pecking order?
I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't go that far, but I think that you're obviously going to see Devontae be the wide receiver 1. That connection, I think, is something that will never be broken.
Yeah,
they just did way too much in Green Bay. But I think that, you'd have to say that Garrett Wilson is probably the best wide receiver 2 in the league at that point. And you would say that it's undeniable that he would flourish in that role. So I probably wouldn't go that far, but I think that, right now, Lazard definitely looks like the wide receiver 1.
What if Wilson was involved in the trade? Like, obviously, Las Vegas would have to give a lot. Like, give some capital, but what if Wilson was involved in that trade? I think Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, I mean, that's a perfect combination that Rodgers would want to play with because he played with them in Green Bay, both of them together. But again, if Wilson doesn't go, I see Wilson as 2 and Lazard as 3, and I just see kind of a 2A, 2B, you could almost say.
Yep.
Yeah,
One week you'd have Wilson doing good, one week you'll have Lazard doing good.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. I mean, if Adams does end up there, then it might work out better for Wilson that he's not going to be on the top corner every week.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's why his separation, he's having these issues. So it might work out better for him that way.
Yeah. Keith, who is your guy? And I think Gary likes this guy a lot too.
I went for Jalen Tolbert. I think with Cooks being on IR, I think this is, going to help him. We seen this week he had 10 targets, 7 receptions, 87 yards, touchdown. He was Dak's friend. It wasn't a great game, really, but he was the one that came to the rescue at the end. I think he's going to be a good flex start going forward. I really liked him coming out, and then he kind of just disappeared out of college. Like it wasn't happening for him, and all of a sudden now he's starting to flourish in this offense. Maybe just a few years of getting the reps under him has worked out. The one thing I would say, I don't know if you have seen the type of injury he got at the end. Not a nice one. Let's say he hurt his nuts.
Oh,
yeah, he got some torsion. So they're going to see if he's going to end up on the injury report. But they're thinking he's going to be okay. So just want to monitor. But I think he's a good pick.
I actually didn't see that, but yeah, he's a guy that I talked about a week or two ago. I think that, as a flyer, you can't go wrong with him. He's shown promise so far this year. Dak seems to trust him. So I think that when you have an offense and a quarterback that likes to pass as much as Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, then kind of any of those guys, obviously CeeDee Lamb's going to get his. He's one of the best receivers in the league. But those other guys behind him could very well get, good numbers for flex play, even wide receiver too, on any given week.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Tolbert, especially Cooks being injured and on IR. I think I'm intrigued on Tolbert. Again, monitor his status for the week, but if he's healthy and he's fully healthy, by all means, Tolbert's a nice option as well. Alan Lazard, Jalen Tolbert, and Darnell Mooney, our top waiver wire ads of the week for the wide receiver position. And I just want to say some breaking news that we have that's Browns related. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson has settled his latest civil lawsuit brought to a woman.
I figured it was some. Yeah, I did see that yesterday. Or whenever it was reported. I thought it was, someone else some superstar on our team got hurt. Garrett's done for the year or whatever. I mean, like I said, this team's done, but I don't think they're going to make a quarterback change yet. And I guess it's positive news to see that this is finally done with, because maybe it means that Deshaun can finally just strictly focus on football, keep his head on the field instead of off. Who knows if that'll help him? I don't know. But it's obviously a positive sign.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into these tight end ads of the week. Another brutal week. But I tell you what, Pat Freiermuth, I've been on this guy. I'm telling you to go get him. Hopefully you got him because he's over 70% owned, because I can't talk about him anymore. But let that music go.
He screwed us all at the end.
What?
He got the touchdown, and then they were playing the pass around, and then he dropped it. So it went down as a fumble in fantasy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's okay. He still was a solid option.
He had 9 points. Not bad.
His 9 points in my league went down to 6. Almost screwed me.
That's brutal.
Yeah, because I got lost for that, and I was winning by 5 or 6. I ended up only winning by like 2 or something in the end, and I was hanging on. Yeah, but I agree because I picked him up. He was a good pickup.
I tell you what, Pat Freiermuth, with that, did he finish as a tight end 20? Yes, this past week, which was surprising to see for a guy that scored 9 points. But I'll go with this strange pick of a tight end, and this is only if Evan Ingram is not the starter. Again, Evan Ingram's been dealing with this hamstring injury. Where is this guy? Is he back on the Giants or something, dealing with all these injuries again? Because that's what it's looking like. Brent Strange, he's been a serviceable tight end if you've been able to go pick him up over Evan Ingram when he's been out. 12.4 points this past week. He's only 11% owned. Now, Evan Ingram is potentially supposed to come back in week 6, but I think he's been potentially supposed to be back for the last couple of weeks. So he's dealing with that hamstring injury. If he does not play again, you're fine to go get Brenton Strange, and you're fine to go start him. Because I will be starting him if Evan Ingram is out once again. And I'll be seeing him live too.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's fine. Like Lawrence likes strong to the tight end position, so he's a guy that's he's going to be serviceable for you. Yeah. You might as well have someone to shout for while you're at the game. So go get him.
Strange pick.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say a strange player to be cheering for.
No, it's definitely a serviceable guy for Sheeran. And this is why, I was so high, and I'm sure same reason for you, Fernando. So high on Evan Ingram this year, because it was the same thing last year. Trevor Lawrence just loves to throw to the tight end position. So it's obvious that Evan Ingram would be, probably a top 5 tight end this year if he had been healthy the entire year. Of course, had a stinker game 1, but, it's a 1-game sample size. It happens. But since then, hasn't been playing. Wish he would come back because I need him. But maybe if Brenton Strange is there on the waiver wire, I'll have to pick him up.
Yeah. Keith, your guy. I think your guy's the best guy of the week.
Tucker Kraft. I mean, at this rate, I think he's plug and play. I don't like. He shouldn't be there. You just put him in and roll with it. Back to back, great weeks. This week, 24 fantasy points. He had the 2 touchdowns, only 5 targets, 4 receptions. But with Watson out, Dobbs doing this whole suspension thing, I mean, it's opening up more targets, and it will going forward for Tucker Craft. So it's a guy now. We shouldn't really be talking about him like you like to say Fernando about Farmouth. After this week, I think you put him in and you just play.
Yeah. I agree. He randomly had a 2-game stretch where he just caught a bunch of passes, a bunch of touchdowns. But Jordan Love seems to trust him, so that's definitely a positive sign for a tight end that you're playing on your fantasy team, because this year especially, not great. So if he can continue to do what he's doing, then that's a great position value for your season going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. Tucker Craft actually has been the tight end 1 back-to-back weeks, and he's now tight end 3 overall. I like him a lot, and I think if Love can stay healthy and Kraft and Love, that's a good connection right there. I'm perfectly fine with him as well. George Play got a question real quick. Hey guys, should I trade Mason for A-Chain? My other running backs are Barkley and Gibbs. I'm 4-1. I think this is a quick answer for me. I'm going to have to say no. Do not trade Mason for A-Chain. You just got Barkley and Gibbs back from their bye weeks, so you're not going to have to deal with any more bye weeks for the running back position. Mason is a guy, if you only have those 3 running backs, I think you got to keep Mason. Especially Keith and I don't know if Gary is too. You don't trade for the same position, one-on-one. So
yeah, I typically stand by that too.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you want to do this. You're banking on Tua being back maybe next week or the week after.
Yeah,
you're 4-1. You're doing well. Barkley and Gibbs stay healthy. You've got a home run hit potentially with HN, but I would stick with Mason because there's still every week it's different with CMC. He might be back, he might not be back. You know what I mean? He might be back tomorrow, he might be back in a month. I would keep with what you have. If you want, for some reason, you want to trade away Mason, go for a wide receiver, like we say, change the position.
No, I would definitely stick with Mason as well. I think the biggest thing with HA with me is his injury, proneness. He injured a lot last year. He's injured right now. He's got a bye week to come back from it, but he's still injured. So that's definitely something that I always keep an eye on. And yeah, let's just face it. I mean, it's looking more and more like CMC is not going to play. So I think that Jordan Mason is a huge waiver wire pickup of the year candidate. So I definitely wouldn't be eager to move him, at least not right now.
Yeah. Lastly, Juju for Keon Coleman. Drop Keon Coleman for Juju Smith. I mean, I wouldn't, only because Juju's on a bye week. I think you see this is the week you evaluate Keon Coleman. If he produces like he did this past week, then I'd keep Keon Coleman. But if not, drop him, go get Juju.
They're probably both in the same range for me.
Yeah.
It's a toss of a coin. I wouldn't go against you if you did it. It's whatever you prefer. Honestly, I mean, I've got Keon Coleman in a few leagues. He's not starting. He probably will on bye weeks in flex spots and hope for the best. You are hoping for a touchdown with Keon Coleman to get value right now. That's not to say that's going it's going to improve. I think that Bills offense looks terrible though, and they got to do something about it. Juju got more involved, and I think you will be involved. But I think like that, you may be looking for a touchdown from him too. So I don't mind either way. I wouldn't argue about doing this or not.
Yeah, I completely agree. I got nothing else to say.
Gary, who's your last guy for the tight end position?
So my tight end is Theo Johnson. He put up 10 points last week. He's only 5% rostered, so he's out there. He had 5 targets the last game and saw almost 80% of snaps. This is just a big name to keep an eye on if Neighbors continues to miss time. Don't know if he will, but if he does, then you'll probably see him get the same amount of targets as he did last game, potentially even more. It's the same thing with Wan'Dale Robinson, I feel like. You see Neighbors get like 20 million targets a game, whatever it is. So when he's not there, obviously those target shares have to go somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if, the big tight end, the big reliable guy for Daniel Jones is where they go. So.
Yeah, I mean, if Neighbors has to keep missing time, I'm all in on Theo Johnson. If you're also in need of a tight end, because if Neighbors is out, targets have to go somewhere. And it looks like Johnson's the guy.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. And then just kind of on the dynasty front, he was a guy I was looking at for down the road. I like the talent. So, yeah, I don't knock this at all.
Yeah. That is our tight ends of the week. Brent Strange, Tucker Kraft, and Theo Johnson. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the last segment of the week, Thursday Night Football.
Gary's favorite music.
I love it. I love it.
49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Keith's team, the over-under right now is 47.5. And let us remind the fans of the records. I'm currently sitting in the middle, 5-5. Can't get above 500. I don't know how I cannot get it over 500, but I've consistently stayed there. Gary, 2-8. He's struggling on that over/under. 0-5 this season on the over/under. Sorry, Gary. Seahawks and 49ers. Again, this is Keith's team. Could he go for the Seahawks? Maybe. Keith, you are 8-2. You are undefeated on your record predictions for Thursday Night Football.
And I have a funny feeling it might come to an end, but I'm not going to desert them now. I'm going with the Seahawks. 26-23, hitting the over. I mean, we should not be picking the Seahawks. Nobody should be after we lose to the Giants. But the way the season is going, it's like, who the hell knows like what's going to happen. So it's a division game. They both know each other well. We're missing so many players in defense that Gino's going to have to play out his skin. But if I take an L here, I take an L here. But I'm going with my boys.
Yeah, no, that's definitely understandable. It is a division home game, so I could definitely see a world where they win. But I'm gonna just try to creep back into this race again. I'm going with the 49ers. They win 27-20, hitting the under by half.
Ooh, hitting the under. Well, I picked the over for the sole reason that Gary is 0-5, because I had the under at one point.
Great, that's a great idea.
And I don't know if I can take the under if Gary's taking the under. So I am, as much as I want to go with the 49ers, I am taking the Seahawks by 1.2827. Keith, I'm sure, loves this, but I mean,
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting both of you to go against me.
Tell your Seahawks to not choke like they did to the New York Giants, please.
I'll try.
You guys are giving me a shot. I'm happy with that.
We're definitely giving Gary a shot here. I agree. I was expecting
Can we
you
just
going
state the
against
fact?
Fernando.
Can we just state the fact that if the Seahawks win and it is the over, Gary
is
you
done.
need to get a toilet bowl trophy.
Yeah. You guys can. Yeah, I'm done after that.
It's brutal. It's brutal out there.
How did you guys do in the listener league this week? Did you guys win?
5-0, baby. 5-0.
I think I lost.
4-1. Me and you are at the top. I don't know where Gary is. Gary's 2-3, 3-2.
2-3. Yeah. My team only put up.
Want to talk about that, Gary?
My team's hurt. I mean, I got no Nixon. I got no Ingram. I mean, Warren is just for the year, I guess. I mean, he's been out, so we'll see what happens. But as of right now, we can help.
I beat Moto BC by 2 points. When I was watching the highlights last night of the Chiefs and Saints game, he had Kamara. So all I was praying was Kamara just did not get over 16 points, and he didn't. So I won just by 2 points. Thank goodness. 5-0. Let's keep it rolling. Once again, that's going to do it here for this week's show. If you haven't done so already, go use that code SportsTimeHQ on Underdog Fantasy. They're going to match your first deposit up to $100. And again, if you're looking for a trophy, ring, or belt, go to TrophySmack.com/SportsTimeHQ. We know Gary is in desperate need of a donation of a toilet bowl trophy for his Thursday Night Football predictions. So please, if you can, Please donate to him. He really needs it. I think it'd look good in the background for his shows. Once again, trophysmack.com/SportsTimeHQ. Once again, that's going to do it here for the Week 5 waiver wire targets in our Thursday Night Football predictions. I was joined by my great co-host, Keith. Go follow him all over social media at SwampDonkey_90. And go follow Gary, my other co-host, my great co-host of the year, of season, of everywhere, GD Picks. Go get him, go follow him. He puts up good social media content as well. I'm Fernando. I'm your host of Sports Time HQ. We're going to see you all next week, as we do every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time.